Come here, Nix. Come look inside. It's glass.
People don't really build with glass. You have two finished surfaces, right? Mm-hmm. And nobody has to come in and put something on it, so it's really a very practical material to use. It's just not done because people are more into, I guess, getting themselves into boxes.
Yeah. Yesterday I got a bird that flew in here. I got a bird in here, but I just went to the other side and he flew out.
If you give people a chance, if you give somebody a chance, I think they would always choose to be able to see out and see what's going on, right? There's just a severe disconnect between the product of housing and, you know, what people really need or want.
We got this land really, really cheap, like unbelievably cheap. We were scouring the city all the time, actually looking for cheap land that no one wanted to deal with, you know, because it was problematic. So for example, the DOT put this giant like bridge wall here so no one can have a driveway. And in Atlanta, everybody drives. Nobody even wanted this lot because there was no way you could drive up on it. But we didn't care, we just park on the street, right? This land nothing had been built on it, and there was like 6 giant mature trees. And we sent out letters just to random people, like the tax counties, sent out like 100 letters and finally got one back. Like this old guy's like, yeah, sure, I'll sell you my land for really cheap. And when we got it, we're like, okay, well this thing is beautiful. We're gonna build, but we're gonna preserve everything that's here. We're not gonna take anything out. But we did is we mapped the trees and we knew where they were in plan. So really it was a matter of knowing where the trees were and then designing footings that were far away from the bases of the roots so that, you know, the roots could still grow and that these beauties would be here. So the I-beams are kind of ridiculously huge, but that's because we needed these huge spans. You know, we couldn't put a footing right at the base of that tree or that tree would be gone. So we're going as far as we can and using the biggest beams as we can to make these spans. When we first saw these beams, we were like terrified. We're like, oh my God, those are too big. What are we gonna do with these 30-inch beams? My brother's the structural engineer. We tried to get him to redo it. He's like, sorry, they have to be that big. You have to use them, so.
Did that add a lot of cost?
In the end, it's not that expensive if you compare it to like stick projects. Like we're buying these steel beams by the pound. So at the time, it was like 50 cents a pound. Now we've got like, okay, we do have 40,000 pounds here. But $20,000 to our mind for a frame that's never going anywhere is cheap, actually. And the cool thing about these beams is we can call them up, give them a credit card, and within a week they will deliver them and they will cut an inch off if we want. They will make them be the perfect size. And they cut it in the factory, they come here, we just plop it on with a crane. And the cool thing, it made construction really fast because those giant I-beams, those were moved with actually a forklift. And it's a forklift boom with like a strap. Carlos has gotten really good at hanging and strapping and rigging, and that's like his favorite thing to do.
Thinking of modular systems, we decided to build our own framework. Once the bridge beams were finally rested into place, erecting the rest of the structure was less stressful. Designed it to be erected from the foundation to roof without the use of floor planes, it went up like an erector set with the building periphery defined by steel beams and columns.
Experimenting with modular building systems, we sought to make the building out of materials that are the result of advanced milling technologies and easily available in industrialized settings like Atlanta. We limited ourselves to a few components: cast concrete, steel beams and framing, stainless sheathing siding, insulated tempered glass, and 2x6 milled lumber. This thing took 4 years, but it was just 2 people working. It was brutal. It was literally 10-hour days for 4 years. When the economy tanked, it was around like 2007, 2008, and we had designed houses for clients. We just didn't have any work that year, and so we cobbled together, you know, loan sharks, personal money, credit cards, and just made that be our job, which worked because then we got other jobs out of it, you know. The reason that footing is so massive is that were one of these trees to come down on the edge of the house, that's going to pin it. That's going to hold it. So this monster pins everything down in case something comes down and takes the rest of it out. So, I mean, hopefully I won't be there when that happens, but it can take it. If you come and take a look at this guy, you know, we mapped it and planned, but by the time you get up there, we didn't necessarily know it was going to V and be that close to the house. But, you know, we've had actually to edge away at it to let the tree grow, so we'll just cut down part of that guardrail to make more room.
No, you'll take the house down.
Oh, just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, that's what makes the place, right? This landing here, this material here, these are just recycled aluminum panels. They're usually made to pour like concrete walls. And we just had this material around, needed a landing, couldn't afford to buy anything. No one wanted to lend us any more money, so here's the walkway. And then a lot of this glass, we have a really good friend in the glass business. And when he has shower doors that people order and they don't want them, we just make it work. Normally architects draw and then they order stuff. We're doing the opposite. We're finding the stuff and then we're drawing to make what we find work. So it's cheaper, but it's way more time consuming. I mean, ridiculously time consuming. This thing took 4 years. But it was just 2 people working, so that's why we couldn't really stagger the work. You know, the same 2 people are doing everything, so it took forever. Forever.
Wow. I love this here. You can't even see where the door is.
Yeah, it's
Is that
tricky,
intentional?
right? Here, let me show you. Here's our trick door. In fact, actually all of these open, like butterfly open. Carlos makes these nice pivot doors. They're pretty great, aren't they?
They're amazing. And they're so easy to open.
Yeah, yeah. It's one little, well, it's balanced. It's one little pivot here and there. And then the structural framework is on the back. So they're really light, but it's just like pretty easy to move.
Our constructions often get called boathouses, tree houses, but House of Doors is our favorite nickname for this one, as the structural system was derived from an exploration of doors.
You can also ride it if you want.
Oh, God. It's so strong.
Yeah, exactly. This spine is basically the hinge. All this stuff reinforces the stiffness of it. At the bottom, in that case, we use nuts, but there's a bearing in there. And of course, it's balanced, so it's easy to have a very large weight sort of spin properly. And maybe we got too obsessed with the doors working, you know, closing in or out.
The reason you went for rather than going for a solid pane of glass, was that aesthetic or was that?
It was basically what is affordable and what 2 people can lift at a time. I mean, I love actually big, huge sheets of glass, but I know that it takes 4 people or it takes machinery that we didn't have, so we kept them a size that is manageable that 2 people could deal with. And the cool thing, it made construction really fast because we erected it, you know, you saw those giant I-beams. With that same forklift, we could lift these huge panels, you know, like a door this big. So we had it all framed up, and then we were just popped in these frames. And at the time, they didn't have glass in them, but because you'd break it all. But we just popped in the frames, and there's this place that sells salvage glass. So we made everything the size that they already have, and just designed around what is already happening. Because, you know, if you buy that stuff directly, freshly made, it's just, we would never even be in this house. It would have cost $1 million, you know, or more. All of this like kind of web work that maybe looks decorative, it's actually not. It's structural. The horizontals are just for security, but the webbing, that triangulation, it's how we can have such a light frame around it. Instead of this, you could do a door that size, but it would be like this honking like 4 or 5 inch square frame. It would be really heavy. So this is more delicate, and it's just a cool look. Our hardware is bolts that we found. So this, you know, the structural, its deepest, it's like a truss right at the pivot. I mean, if you tried to buy a door like that, forget about it. I can push it in if I want. It's a weather-proofing problem, but we're covered so we don't have to deal with it. And this is, again, our friend in the glass business. All these huge sheets of striped glass. They were for, I think it was an Acura car showroom or something, and there's something wrong with them, right? So our friend gave us all these sheets, which would be $1,000 a piece easily. So that's what we made all these guardrails. That's what's going up the stair. And then I don't know if you saw this other huge door. So this guy swings. And anyway, so this is that Acura showroom glass, and he knew we would do something cool with it, so he basically gave it to us. And it's just so you can configure the space differently. If you're having a party, you know, you might want to open this up and make a dance floor. That bed's on wheels, so we'll wheel it out, or we'll take it apart and stuff it in the closet. Okay, so now the door is open in party mode, so you could make a big dance floor out of it. But if you decide you want a little privacy in your life, or you have guests coming and you don't want them to see your unmade bed, you can close it off. And this, you can close it off, and you have a little bit of privacy. Now this whole silly wall that is built here because we needed to call this thing a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. The banks came here and they're like, well, this is just a studio. This isn't, there's a bedroom up there and this is a studio. So they were, when we were trying to refinance and get a loan or everything, they're like, well, you have to have 2 bedrooms if you want to get the number you want. So we're like, okay. So we just put this wall up and we're like, there's our 2nd bedroom. So here we are, all closed down, bye. So we did have another little one right here. So it was all private. But no one ever used it, and it just got in the way, and we took it down. If somebody wants it, it's in the yard, we'll just pop it back up. They go in really easy. There's just these little, it's that same pivot hinge trick. This pivot hinge costs like $5. So we just make a hole in the wood and screw it down there, and if you balance it right, it's just really easy to open. And this whole thing is closed off, so the bank would consider this a 2-bedroom house.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, well, they have these formulas you have to fit, and this house is tough to fit any formula. Banks seem to make no distinction between the quality of the material or the design. What they're looking at is how many square foot it is, how many bedrooms you have. So the way, like if you were buying a car, you can tell a difference between like a Pinto and a Lamborghini. This thing is like considered, it's not, it is a Lamborghini, but they don't see it that way. They just see that, oh, it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. You know, they don't care that it's like totally hurricane proof. The other thing that we totally lucked out in, because you know we scrapped this thing together with personal loans, brother and sister loans, loan sharks, credit cards, whatever. We just did whatever, right, and made it happen. But we made the shapes of the bathrooms. What happened is we ordered all this glass and the spec came in wrong, like it's stuff that would degrade in the sun. The glass company realized they made an error and they said, well, why don't you just keep all that glass and we'll make you new glass. And we said, okay. So all this beautiful $20 square foot frosted glass was meant to go outside. And so we made a door that would fit because that's the size of glass we had. And so that's why the bathroom is a certain size. And then this house had no client, right? So we kind of did some experimental things that we might not do again. This floor kind of worked out, but what this floor is, it's that same glass that our buddy gave us that we made the big panels with. It's the same stuff. What we did is we took a grinder tool, we made this pattern and we scored these lines in it and then we filled it with silicone to make this little weird pattern. So people think it's like mosaic tile, but it's really just this weird sheet. Now, I want to show you the fail just because we did the same thing in the shower, but with white grout, and on day one it just looked gross. It's like all the stuff is cracked so it looks cool, but when I put it in the shower, all the grout got under there, it looks disgusting, and I definitely plan on retiling it. Like on day one, it's like heartbreaking, right? You think it's going to be really cool, and it looks, that looks like mold, you know? It's not mold. But so this shape right here, this is just the free glass we had, and then we did some weird things, like those pieces of panel, they're insulated panels, so they have, you know, 2 sides to them. We filled them with concrete just to get that color, just as a way to make them more opaque.
Just pieces, so it's all pieces.
Yeah, it's just total scrapped. I mean, sometimes we were like going in the woods trying to find scrap metal just to make like one little, you know, door handle or something. That's more of our like free glass down there. It's just because we didn't have any money at the time, and not that we still do, but we do a lot of salvaging and we go buy stuff by the pound. You see how rough that is? That was like in the woods, like rusting, but it was the size we needed and we couldn't afford to buy it, so up it went. And this whole house is about, you know, bringing the outside in. People call it the treehouse, and Carlos hates that name, but it's apt. I mean, it's fit.
It's more of a house that respects the trees.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Oh,
can
yeah,
see it
you
from
can see
here,
it.
how close we get to that one. The guardrail used to come up like that, and you can see how it was digging into the tree. This thing was moving and cutting away, so we just chunked it out, which wasn't that easy. We're probably going to have to go further. That's going to be a real pain. But I guess we're waiting till we are forced to do it, right? You know, this tree is actually dead, and it's actually been hit by lightning twice. Carlos saw it once. But we've had an arborist come look at it. It's going to fall that way when it falls, so I'm not too freaked out. Wow. The arborist actually suggested if you have a dead tree, kind of leave it because it makes a nice nest for falcons. We have falcons that cruise around here, so they prefer. Plus, it's cheaper to just trim the branches and leave the whole thing than, yeah. In fact, you know, the whole deck was going to be bigger, but this tree got in the way. We didn't realize, I mean, we knew where it was in plan, but as it gets closer to the building, so this beam is just flying out long because we were going to make the whole deck bigger. And we just decided, what's the point? If we kill this tree, this place is not so cool anymore, right?
So now you have this
Weird shaped deck, yeah. We have all these built-in grills so you can cook out here. This is a stainless steel thing we found by the pound, or this. This is actually a little grill. So we just like found this for like $2 and just, I already had the steel, so we just made it work. Someone's been cooking here, yeah, a little barbecue. And then the other thing is, it's all insulated glass, but people are like, how do you heat and cool it? It's like just the same. I mean, it's really not a big deal. All the glass is insulated. I think people just have the impression that it's scrapped together and it's found materials, but it's insulated, it's tempered. If it breaks, it's going to shatter. It's not going to like decapitate you. Not going to cut anybody's head off. A lot of times when we were doing this, we would break like a piece of glass. For example, this light fixture, the piece of insulated glass, so we accidentally broke. We put a bunch of Elmer's glue on it so the cracks would stick together. So there's a lot of that going on, like extra stuff that we have. So this is like crappy Home Depot track lighting that no one wants to see. So we just had these scraps of material, and these are some more of that free glass that we got. But so that should have been exterior glass, but now it's my light fixture.
You know, you're salvaging materials, and that you've managed to make it feel luxury.
I mean, you know, how much does a countertop cost? People pay $100 a foot. Do you know what that is? This countertop, maybe you'll notice that it tapers at the end, and there's a few clues as to what it is. It was actually, a Dynaflex diving board. It's from the 60s, and they stopped making them out of aluminum. They went to fiberglass. If you look under it, you can kind of maybe recognize it as a diving board. I mean, so it's not gross. We buffed it. It's not like, you know, a bunch of feet were on it, but it's tapered. It has these cool old-fashioned rivets. So it's like, you know, this thing was $70 because I bought it by the pound, and then you just cut a hole for the stove, cut a hole for the sink, and you're done. So it feels high-end, but it's really like the cheapest thing you could ever find. I mean, another thing we're doing is, you know, we can make everything, but we don't have like a shop. It's not like factory, like perfection. So we will buy factory perfection. For example, like those white cabinets and these drawers, we would buy the drawer faces from IKEA. And then we made all the steel just to fit, you know, IKEA standard sizes. So the drawer and the drawer faces is store-bought. But this frame is something that we made to fit it. So we're just like, you know, attached their hardware and all that. So we have to remake every single piece of hardware. So that's what we did for these as well. I mean, they look a little rough when you open them because this is like IKEA hardware that we just welded into our steel frame. And then we did the same thing with the doors in that closet, just like standard IKEA closet doors. So we bought their doors, their track, but we made the frame. Because we can't make anything this like shiny and perfect, really. The only problem is if these ever break, I'm in so much trouble because they don't make this, they don't make this style anymore. Oh, this table is actually part of that experimental floor. It's a sheet of glass, and then we took a grinder and made this, like, cut into the glass, and then filled it with silicone to make that pattern. So it looks like mosaic, but it's just something funky.
Tell me about the ceiling.
Oh, I would like to tell you about these ceilings and the floor. These are actually 2x6s. So they're this deep. We laminate them together like butcher block. So it's a little labor intensive. It's very expensive material wise, but what you do when you get that, you can do huge spans. Like you can go, I think you can go to 19 feet without any columns it's effort. You have to put a board in, glue it, nail it, put a board in, glue it, nail it. So it's like painstakingly slow. It's ridiculously slow, but it's just solid forever. And you have a ceiling finish, so you don't have to build a structure and then put plywood on top of it, put a hardwood floor. You don't have to, and then sheetrock underneath. It's just one thing.
Because that's the floor and the ceiling.
That's the floor and the ceiling. So it seems ridiculously like overkill, but it's killing many birds with one stone. And that's what this building is about. It's just very few materials, very few things that can go wrong. You know, not a place for like pests and squirrels and roaches and whatever. There's no weird spaces that things can grow for mold and all that. It's just solid. If you have a leak, you know, you can see where it came through, you deal with it, you know. You know, it was made as a single family house, but we decided to separate in the upstairs and the downstairs. So here's another pivot door. Secret door open. Oh, come right this way. I want to show you how thick the floors are. You can see on this edge, this is, I mean, so it's really thick. And each one is glued and nailed together, so.
So you said it's expensive because of labor or because of it actually?
Well, the materials too. Like if you bought a 2x6s to do a regular floor, like, you know, maybe it's, you know, $200 in material versus we're spending $500 and, you know, it's much more in wood, but.
You use so much more.
Yeah. So this, you know, this floor that we're standing on, that's the 2x6s. This one was different. This is 2x6s on end. They're flat and it's 2 layers. Because there was just no need for a structure that heavy duty up there. Carlos can't buy a door big enough, so he has to make his own. I am blaming you. So this guy, this one's fun because these both go out. So how's that for increasing your living space? I think the space is only like 700 square feet. We pretty much keep the upstairs for ourselves. Carlos stays here, and we rent the bottom floor.
There's just no clutter.
We argue about that all the time because we're designing houses for clients, and I know they have junk. I know they have photographs, they have luggage, they have their ski equipment and all that. And, you know, he doesn't ever want to give up the space for that, but you know, you got to have a little bit of it. So we have tucked in closets, like they're really small. I'll show you this closet. It's ridiculous. It's about 12 inches deep, but it works. This is like the tiniest closet. And then, you know, everything's really light. Carlos designed this bed. I don't know if you can see that cool frame, but it actually tilts up. And we can tuck it up under there. And then, you know, all the furniture is pretty much salvaged. Here's one of our tricks. This is like an Eames base. So this is a really fancy base. And this is a salvaged piece of glass. So should I give away my secret? My siliconed on. This whole piece, not that we needed a bar here, but we needed a place to mount the air conditioning units. So that is actually the air conditioning unit. And these are all the lines, you know, they need water running to them. They have, you know, their line sets running and power. So it just made it into a little piece So this bathroom, this stuff was supposed to be exterior glass, and there was something wrong with the seal for exterior, but the glass company gave it to us. So we designed the doors and the size of this room based on glass we already had. The shower, you know, this is basically because we had these 3 pieces of glass that wide, so that's why that shower got made that way, that size. And we happened to have a piece of stainless steel that big, so that's really what dictated it. I mean, one of the things he does, and he designed it so that on 360 degrees there's always glass. Like you can see everywhere. I mean, the only place there's not is this one 4-foot section. I mean, we kind of had to have some place where pipes went through. So you always have, you know, a view out.
For me, I just need to be able to see the sky and, you know, feel the atmosphere and feel the time change. Feeling, you know, you're basically sort of traveling through times. So they're sort of vessels in a way. There's a little bit of a disconnect, I think, between house production and the environment. It becomes really prohibitive to do a custom-built house. A lot because of the way that the whole industry is set up. You know, you see this incredible lot, and then they'll come in and knock everything out and put a house. It might have a fantastic view in the south, and there won't be a window in that direction just because they were using a stock plan, or it's become largely a business, and so it makes, you know, nicely built homes that are adapted to that specific environment a lot harder to find.
Was it hard to open it?
No. It's not heavy?
You pay attention how they open. It takes less energy to open if you just put some weight here. This way you leverage. If all the weight will be here, it will take way more energy to do that.
You know, you get a nice breeze, they capture the wind coming from one direction and it goes to the side. So you're kind of encouraged to open the doors and turn the air conditioning off now.
It's fine with hurricanes and...
There's a lot of flexibility to the structure. The joints there's a lot more reinforcing than you could get out of wood and welding steel.
Earthquakes, whatever, I think we're covered. Trees falling.
We had a big branch fall over that beam and it didn't, other than breaking the skylight, it didn't cause any other damage.
This skylight used to be all glass all the way across, and you can see how one of them is wood now, right? So a giant branch broke through that and we just filled it with wood rather than, at the time we just did not have the energy to get a 300-pound piece of glass custom fit up there, so we just let it go. It's actually better because now we can walk out on that part and clean the other sides of the glass. Before we couldn't even really walk out there. Glass could be scary, but if a branch goes through it, you just cut it out with an X-Acto knife and pop another one in there. It's not such a nightmare as if you had a wood frame and you had plywood and siding and insulation, all this stuff, like it could get wet and get gross. The glass is just pop it out, pop it in. It's easier to deal with.
Do you think this idea could be replicated?
Totally. I would love to replicate it. We learned a lot on this one.
Is this more expensive?
Yeah, this was a more expensive way to build, for sure. And not everyone can afford it, but maybe if we simplify our systems, we could standardize them. So we're designing something for someone else now, and now we're doing a rectangle. And we're doing it the size of the beams that they already come. You know, they come 60 foot. We're doing it 16 wide because that's how long you can get 2x4s, and that's how they span. So it'll be a simpler thing. Instead of all these crazy shapes, we can make it more affordable. But it's also not going anywhere for 200 years, right? So you pass it on to your grandkids, hopefully, and it retains its value. It's also made of steel, so you're not repainting it. You don't have to put like any effort into it, or maintenance, hopefully. We even did we used cast iron plumbing, which nobody does. They use PVC. It's that black pipe right there. It's a lot more expensive, but it's actually quieter when you flush the toilet. You can't feel it. It's just easier to work with, and it's not, you don't have to use that gross PVC glue. We're building another house for a client, so this one's been neglected for 4 years, and you can't tell that much.
This place ages well.
Yeah. People are putting their whole life savings. They're only going to buy one house, and they're spending $150,000 on this thing that might have cost $60,000 to build or less, and the builders build with the, what do you call it, the least common denominator.
There's just a severe disconnect between the product of housing and, you know, what people really need or want, or, you know, it's just not really an area where people experiment too much on what that product might be.